Madam Presiding Member, I make that 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Chris. Boroda, good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of Council. The Council meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be able to be viewed online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings, but I've had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the chamber, please be aware that we're all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you wish to speak. And please remember to keep your microphones muted when you are not talking. May I remind members that as per the statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending meetings remotely must be able to be seen and heard by members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask you all that you please use your cameras for the duration of this meeting? Thank you. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1 is attendance. Democratic Services will be making a note of members' attendance in the meeting, but should you lose connection, could you possibly leave a comment in the chat bar and on your return to ensure that this is picked up? Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Dominique, have we any apologies, please?
I've had apologies from Councillor Sue Morgan.
Any further apologies from the floor? Thank you very much. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Gareth Harris, Monitoring Officer and Assistant Chief Legal Officer, have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I haven't been made aware of any declarations from members, but I would like to inform Council that with regard to agenda item number 9, which is the closer and collaborative working with Blaenau Gwent, the Chief Executive will be leaving the room when the report is presented and when members vote on the recommendations. But can I ask Council to agree that the Chief Executive joins the meeting after Jason Lewis has presented the report to provide members with some more information and to answer any questions. It is important that any questions that members have are directed at the Chief Executive at that point when he's in the meeting. So if I can just ask members to agree that. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
You all agree, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 4, the confirmation of the Council minutes from the 17th of December 2024. These are starting on page 5 of the agenda. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to these minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. I'll take those as approved, thank you. Agenda item 5 is the update on actions. Members, the updates on what has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 45 of your agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions or comments? No. I ask members whether they agree to note the update on actions, please. Okay. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Those are noted. Thank you very much. Agenda item 6, which is the receipt of petitions. There are no petitions today, so we'll move on to agenda item 7, public question time. There are no public questions, so we'll move on to agenda item number 8, and that is the announcements from the Leader and the Chief Executive. Leader, do you have any announcements for us, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. 3 announcements today. The first is that Holocaust Memorial Day is on Monday the 27th of January, again this year, which is the date that marks the liberation of Auschwitz and is used as an opportunity to commemorate the victims of genocide. We're offering year 9 to 11 pupils the chance to hear a first-hand account from someone with a personal connection to the atrocities of Nazi persecution. Eva Clark will share her story and provide insights on the historical background of the Holocaust, the impact the Holocaust still has on modern society and the lessons we can learn from history. Her powerful testimony will be shared via a live webinar for schools in Torfaen, Blaenau Gwent and Caerphilly on Friday the 24th of January between 10 a.m. and noon. Eva will also answer people's questions, so it's a great opportunity for schools, for those of you who are governors of our secondary schools, to get involved in that opportunity. Secondly, I'd like to present an award now to the pupils and staff of Woodlands Primary School. The pupils and staff of Woodlands Primary have been a shining example of what it means to be active citizens. Woodlands School Eco Council, supported by their teacher, have taken an active part in repurposing a closed-off play area situated outside their school. They initiated the project back in 2022, highlighting their concern and disappointment that the area had been closed for so long. This was due in part to the pandemic and then subsequently to persistent vandalism. The project to repurpose the play area evolved into a collaborative venture with the work being carried out by Bronavon and the Gwent and Torfaen Local Nature Partnership. Woodland School Eco Council provided the energy and creativity, taking part in the planning and design, as well as informing different decisions to be taken. They have been unfailingly enthusiastic and committed. Supporting them along the way were staff, residents, parents and ward and community councillors. The Spaces for Nature space in Bagley Court, Thornhill, was finally opened on November the 20th, 2024, with a day-long planting event in which over 50 of the pupils took part. Despite the very cold weather, a thoroughly enjoyable time was had by all. On behalf of Torfaen Council, and with thanks to officers from Bronavon too, we are delighted to present the Certificate of Civic Achievement. So if the pupils and staff, as well as the two ward councillors, can come down, then give them a round of applause. So thank you to them for coming in as well today. Lastly, I'd just like to say a few words about Nigel Aurelius. Most of you all know that it's his last council meeting today after 45 and a bit years of service to the people of the borough. I know he doesn't look old enough, but still. I remember very well in 2012, he was one of the first officers I met as I came in as a new member and the exec member for resources, and we quickly built up a productive working relationship, despite me being very young too then. The alliance between members and officers to serve our residents is something very special here in Torfaen and something I value greatly. And in Nigel, you've got the epitome of that, really. He's always retained the professional ability to provide expert advice, and a huge amount of knowledge on finance, but also he has the human qualities and the perspective of someone who's a resident himself, and I think that's been of huge value to our council and to the people that we serve. Section 151 officers and members sometimes have quite a sensitive relationship. I know that from other councils, but I've never felt that Nigel has pushed us into overcaution. Instead, he's been steadfast in his safeguarding of the financial sustainability of the council and its services, but has also fostered a culture across the council of us all working together for all services, not services fighting between one another. And I think that's been incredibly important. So Nigel's someone whose work and whose advice I've valued hugely over the years, and I know lots of other members have too, and our borough is at huge debt for the service that he's given to Torvine. We'll all miss him, but I'm sure we all wish him a very long and happy retirement and look forward to seeing him round and about, whether on the canal or popping into the Civic Centre to say hello. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to Nigel for all that he's done, and as I say, to wish him a long and happy retirement, and he goes with a thanks from us all. We'll miss him, but enjoy.
Thank you, Leader. I know the Chief Executive wishes to respond as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. And just focusing on Nigel, if I can, myself for a few minutes. Before I actually arrived in Torvine, I'd heard plenty about the passion of the Welsh, and Nigel was one of the very first people that I met. And I think he truly embodied that passion, especially when in terms of his unwavering focus on our wonderful county. Over the past 3 years since I joined the council, and for many years before, Nigel's been a guide, a temperature gauge, and at times for me, a necessary handbrake, always steering us in the right direction. His loyalty and dedication have been nothing short of remarkable. His wizardry in his role has consistently amazed me, and his ability to keep ahead when all around are losing theirs has been a true asset. And I'll just take a moment to give an example that shows what I mean, and I think that shows Nigel at his best. It's become a bit of a running joke within the council, but when faced with the very stark reality of our £35 million MTFP challenge, it was Nigel that humorously drew the comparison between our circumstances and those of the infamous Apollo 13 mission. And in that case, the Public Affairs Officer is reported to have said that NASA was facing its worst disaster it had ever experienced. Overhearing the conversation, famously, Gene Kranz, who was the Chief Flight Director, interrupts and says, "With all due respect, sir, I believe that this will be NASA's finest hour." Now, when faced with our own potential disaster, or MTFP, and while everyone was in a bit of a panic, Nigel calmly assessed our situation, devised a plan, led us through it with such composure and expertise. And it was a moment that truly highlights his exceptional leadership, problem-solving skills. For anyone who ever wondered why our MTFP today is still managed under our very own Project Apollo, now you'll know where that name comes from. On a personal note, I just want to thank Nigel for his support, his friendship over the past 3 years. And on behalf of all Torvine staff, past, present and future, I extend our deepest gratitude for the 45 years of service, Nigel. Your legacy will undoubtedly last for many years to come. The staff of Torvine wish you all the very best in your future endeavours, and we hope your next chapter is as extraordinary as your time has been with us.
I don't think we can let him leave without a speech. Nigel.
Not one for public sorry. Not one for public speaking, as members will know. Not sure of the use of the word wizardry, actually, but there we are. Well, thank you, Leader and Stephen, for those kind words. The world of work and the offices I entered way back in 1979 when I started work pretty much a world away from those we occupy today. And when I think back, it's easy to see how far we've come in that time, and in many ways for the better. We couldn't imagine now an office that is not full of technology, or one in which people regularly smoked. But back then, we had 2 VDUs and 3 phones. Our computer, which was probably less powerful than most smartphones today, occupied a full floor of County Hall and had a whole service area just to maintain the computer. And we sat on what can best be described as breakfast chairs. We certainly hadn't heard of ergonomic chairs then. But I think in one significant way, perhaps things are not quite as good as they were then, and that is in terms of respect, both for others and the institutions we work in. I've been incredibly proud to work for over 45 years, firstly for Gwent and then for the last 30 years for Torfaen, and for the last 20 years as your Treasurer, a period that's included the financial crash of 2008, the years of austerity that followed, and the COVID pandemic. I think I must have walked under a ladder somewhere along the line. I think as a council we navigated all those well and emerged from each in a relatively strong and healthy place, although the decisions we had to take along the way were often difficult and challenging. I've always tried to bring a calm and prudent approach to managing our financial affairs, and I think I leave you in a relatively strong position. And I know that you're in safe hands now with Andrew and Rob. I've worked with some incredible people over the years, and far too many to mention now. I really don't want to start singling anyone out, because in doing so I will surely miss someone out. Everyone's been special, and I regard all as both close colleagues and friends. We spend such a lot of our lives in work, and it's important that we try and enjoy it. And to do that, getting on with your colleagues is important. As probably everyone knows, I had to have open-heart surgery in 2017. So I went from playing football to having to undergo such major surgery. It was quite a challenge. I had nothing but support from this place, staff and members, and that clearly made my recovery and return to work so much easier. I started work as a 16-year-old, and my first jobs were packing 5,000 cheques a day and writing out salary cards. Someone even explained to me, it says name there, you put the person's name there. All of that was by hand. We had no machines. So in those early days, I did all the mundane and routine jobs that are the absolute lifeblood to ensure any organisation, large or small, can function. That grounding has stayed with me, and although I end my career in a relatively senior position, I never forget that this organisation functions because of the roles everyone plays, and not just those of a few of us at the top. I've always believed we are the sum of our parts, and no one's more important than anyone else. We just have different roles to perform, but all with the same goals in mind. In Torfaen, we are lucky that we have a great culture as an organisation, and one that we have worked hard over many years to create. I think it's quite precious and needs to be constantly worked at, because if the culture is right, everyone will perform better. Protecting and building that culture has been very important to me, and now it is for others to maintain it and ensure it thrives. Stephen, I'm sure, will ensure that's the case. The leaders already referred to it, but there's mutual respect and trust between members and officers. I think that's important because we have different roles to play, and the outcome from residents is better where there is that respect and trust. Hybrid working has brought many advantages and benefits, and I think in Torfaen we are trying to get the balance right. The Civic Centre is certainly much busier than it was, and indeed busier than many other councils. But hybrid has its limitations, particularly in maintaining a culture. Coming into the workplace is important because that's when you know which organisation you're working for and why. I would also add, I think this is a debating chamber, and it would be nice to see it a little more regularly full. So finally, a big thank you to everyone I worked with and the elected members, past and present, who have such a challenging role. I think there are exciting times ahead, and I'm sure Torfaen will endeavour to be on the front foot and take advantage of the potential of our staff. The financial picture is always going to be challenging, and seeking out new ways of innovation will always be important. In Stephen, you have an excellent Chief Executive who will ensure that drive to improve will never lessen. I have worked with or for 8 Chief Executives, and all brought different qualities to the role. Indeed, the role in 2025 is vastly different to the role in 1979, but Stephen is right up there with the best in terms of drive, vision and a resolute focus on performance. So, whilst I'm ready to hang up my boots, I can't get that football out of me, see, not totally. After a long career, I don't intend to be a stranger. Stephen and many others know that they can still call on me, and I will come into the Civic from time to time to keep in touch with people I regard as friends. Thanks.
Thank you, Nigel, and I'm sure the whole council and staff wish you a healthy, happy retirement. Thank you. Any further comments from anyone?
Thank you, Chair. I've known Nigel, as many of us, for many, many years. I think it's all been said about Nigel, and I just a comment on some couple of years ago, and something he said to me, which I've very often remind him about. After a very lively debate in here, and it was lively, and we were talking at the landing, I still got a bit heated, and he was so complimentary about this chamber. He said, "That ain't nothing," he said. He said, "This chamber is better than any other chamber he knows." He said, "Lots of them are bear pits," and I'll always remember that. And he said, "This definitely is a bear pit." He complimented this chamber, how we conduct ourselves, and I thank him for that. And everything else has been said about him. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Thank you, Nigel, and we wish you well. That takes us to agenda item 9, which is closer collaborative working with Blaen y Gwent, and starts on page 47 of your agenda. Jason Lewis, Director of Corporate Services, could you introduce this report, please? The Chief Executive is just leaving for this, although he was going to remain to answer any questions, but he'll come back in after, before the decision. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, members. You will recall that at your meeting on the 11th of June last year, you agreed to the sharing of Stephen as Chief Executive with Blaen y Gwent Council for up to 9 months, whilst an exploration of closer working opportunities between both councils was undertaken. The exploration was described as a discovery phase that would establish the appetite of both councils to working more closely together, as well as identify opportunities, the potential for efficiencies and working at scale together with the barriers and risks of doing so. At the end of the discovery phase, it was agreed that a further report would be presented to the Council that would detail the outcome and highlight the potential benefits available to both authorities, outline the risks and challenges that will need to be managed to achieve the potential benefits, and to recommend either putting the initial arrangement on a more permanent footing or ceasing the arrangement. This is that report being presented to you today. A similar report with the same recommendations will be presented to Blaen y Gwent Council on Thursday. The discovery phase is now concluded, following extensive engagement with members and senior officers, together with town hall briefings for staff across both councils. The discovery work was well facilitated by the local partnerships team, comprising Natalia Silva, who is with us in the chamber today, Jib Scopes and Victoria Camp. Their detailed report, including their findings and recommendations, is included with this report as an appendix. So in summary, the discovery work identified that members and senior officers recognised the benefits of the joint appointment of a Chief Executive and expressed a strong and enthusiastic appetite for closer working and collaboration. The Local Partnerships Report consequently recommends both the permanent appointment of a Joint Chief Executive and the development of a business case and programme of service alignment. It should be noted that the effectiveness and sustainability of the Joint Chief Executive role can only be achieved through establishing a new supporting leadership structure. A decision by the respective councils to appoint a Joint Chief Executive on a permanent basis will therefore also provide him, as Joint Head of Paid Service, with a delegated mandate to develop and implement a permanent leadership team structure that will likely include some joint roles and alignment of functions and structures across the two councils. Appointments to the roles in the new structure will be made from existing executive team and corporate leadership team members. Roles in the new leadership team structure should be considered as variations to existing roles rather than the creation of new roles that would be subject to the provisions related to senior appointments as set out in the Council's pay policy. It is not expected that the creation of a new leadership team structure will result in any detriment or redundancy. It is likely that the increase in scope, scale and strategic responsibility for some roles will justify an increase in salary in the same way that it did for the salary of the Joint Chief Executive. Should this be the case, there will be a requirement for a further report to Council presenting the rationale for requesting approval of any such salary increases in accordance with the Council's pay policy. For appointments to joint roles, including the Joint Chief Executive post, the post holders will continue to be employed by their existing employer for pay and rations purposes, but will receive amended terms and particulars of service that would cover their responsibilities to both councils on a permanent basis. Section 1.7 of the Local Partnership Report broadly covers the next steps in the development of greater alignment between both councils following the appointment of a Joint Chief Executive on a permanent basis. It includes the implementation of the federated model of political governance as described in the report, establishing a change and transformation team, the development of common policy where appropriate, the development of business cases for service alignment and subsequent service redesign and implementation. A plan will be developed for each of these stages, which is likely to extend over a 3-year period, with short, medium and longer-term milestones. The delivery plan will be supported by a comprehensive stakeholder engagement plan, ensuring that the public, members and officers are all engaged and consulted regularly and appropriately as the transformation programme progresses. Whilst the Local Partnerships Report recommends the appointment of a permanent Joint Chief Executive and to develop a plan for collaborative and closer working between both councils, this report presents 2 options to Council. These are, as recommended, to move the current arrangements for closer working onto a more permanent footing through the appointment of Stephen as the permanent Joint Chief Executive for both councils. This decision will also result in the establishment of a supportive leadership structure and the development of a work programme to establish closer and collaborative working arrangements between both councils, or alternatively, decide not to take forward the recommendations for closer working set out within the Local Partnerships Report. This option would see current arrangements remaining in place for a further 6 months, with Stephen operating as the shared Chief Executive for this temporary period in order to support Blaenau Gwent to recruit a new Chief Executive. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody have any questions before we bring Stephen back in to answer any? Oh, okay, can we bring Stephen back in? Oh, sorry, Leader.
Yeah, there's just a few points I'd like to make, and it's probably appropriate to make them before Stephen's in the room. I just think in this financial environment, if we want to preserve services and improve the outcomes for our residents and communities, being innovative like this and finding new ways of working is essential. We can't just stand still as the tide comes in and then wonder why our feet get wet. And for me, this answers some key points made to us as members when we're out on the street. We'll all have had people say to us that we should have fewer chiefs and more workers. We've all had people say to us that we should target savings from the top, not at the coalface. And I think this is a direct answer to those two challenges. I'd like to thank Blaenau Gwent for their open-minded and constructive approach to this work. I think it's 2 councils who realise they can learn and improve together. And in my 13 years, sorry, getting on. In my 13 years of experience of working in partnership with other organisations, I think that spirit is key. That's why I think collaborations work and why others don't, is the spirit in which they're entered. This is not one council trying to take over the other one. This is not one council thinking it has all the answers. And key, I think, this is 2 councils who realise they can learn in different areas from each other. Also, I believe our values are aligned. It's vital for me to approach this in the spirit of social partnership, working with our staff and trade unions, for them to work with us to identify exactly where the opportunities will be and where they are not. This is not a merger of 2 councils. There will be areas where we continue to work separately, because that's the best thing for our residents and for our services. But there are areas where I think we can can work together more. This, for me, emphatically, is not about fewer staff. It's about equipping and empowering the staff that we have now and helping them to work more effectively. It's about giving them a chance at bigger teams, for example, and more career progression where that would help them. I think sometimes over the last 15 years, teams have been reduced to a point where now a single absence or a single person departing a team can heap a huge amount of stress on those who are left and a huge amount of workload on those who are left. Is there an opportunity, I would say, in some of those areas to combine teams so that you could keep hold of staff for longer because there's more career progression, so that you could be a little bit more resilient, so if someone is off, unfortunately, on long-term sick, or someone does depart to go somewhere else, the team has more resilience to move forward. So it's issues like that I think we can offer opportunities. And lastly, I'd like to say that my other reassurance for this is because it's got the right balance. It has been driven by our leadership, but it's not driven for our leadership, and I think that is a very key distinction. I don't think Stephen woke up one morning and said his greatest ambition was to be in charge of 2 councils, but at the same time I think he has the energy and the drive to do that. You'll know Stephen well enough to know that he's never satisfied with the status quo or just bumbling along as business as usual. He always wants to try and do things better and to make things more effective, to break the mould, if you will. And I think in Stephen we have someone who can take this work forward. But importantly as well, we can't always rely on the same people always being here. And I think when it comes to replacing Stephen, we've had a lot of words said today about the effectiveness of our senior staff. For me, succession planning in that area is vital. How we are going to attract the best staff to our council areas, I think, is a key point. It's a key job for me as leader. One of the sort of the proudest moments I have of leader is the job that we did in getting in such a high-quality field and selecting Stephen as our Chief Executive. I believe we will be in a better place to do that in the future and to continue attracting high-quality members of our teams if we are seen as at the forefront of innovation like this, if we are 2 councils working together. And a last bit of reassurance, this isn't about merging councils. We will retain our sovereignty as an organisation, our own Section 151 officer, for example, our own accounting lines, things like that. So this is not an erosion of that. This, for me, is getting the best of both worlds. There's been a lot talked about in the past about local government mergers and local government reorganisation. For me, that misses the point. For me, that big bang approach would just create uncertainty and spread parochialism, whereas this aims to get the best of both worlds. So I'd highly commend this report to members. I think this is a way of us leaving a legacy for the future of better services for the people we serve, and a better chance for our communities to build that resilience, to work to those Marmot principles, to have a healthier, more engaged set of communities. So I commend this report to Council.
Thank you, Leader. I see Councillor Connell, you have your hand up. Do you wish to put your question to Stephen Vickers, Chief Executive?
I'll make it to Council if that's okay, with Stephen out of the room.
Right, fine. Go ahead.
I'll take the leader's points there, but I do just want to disagree with it slightly, in that I do think this is on the pathway to a merger. You can call it alignment, you can call it a social partnership, but when you're sharing a single leadership structure, it's almost a merger by stealth. And I think we need to be upfront and honest with people about exactly what it is we're doing, and the impacts that it'll have on the service levels, if any, in the future, and certainly any alignment of teams underneath the leadership structure, which I'm sure will come. So I would like us, I'm not saying transformational change is the wrong thing to do. I just think we need to have the debate internally and assure ourselves that residents of Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent will not be detrimentally impacted by the changes that we're making, rather than try to get this, just feels like it's going through the back door. And I think we need to have that debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connell. Councillor Giles Davis, do you wish to ask a question without the Chief Executive or to the Chief Executive?
Yes, it's just I totally agree with Councillor O'Connell. I feel that this, Councillor O'Connell, I feel that this is And to me, as he said, it needs to be discussed a lot more, the residents of Torvey, what they actually want before we steamroller them into something they might not want. So yeah, I totally agree with Jason's comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Giles Davis. That wasn't a question, that was a comment. We'll call Stephen Vickers in now if anybody else has any questions regarding the report that Jason has produced this morning. Thank you. The Chief Executive has returned to the room. Do I have any questions for the Chief Executive? Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I've got 3 questions, if I can just roll them out quickly. The first one is, I'd just like to ask what measurable benefits will residents see from the collaboration with Brian Gwent? The second one is how much money has been spent so far on this collaboration, and what will the Council do if this partnership fails to deliver the promised efficiencies and improvements, and what will that timeline look like?
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. I think if you see section 1.3 of the appendix that sets out, I think, quite clearly some of the benefits that would be achieved as a result of the closer working together. Wholeheartedly, I think they are both achievable and realistic in terms of setting out some of our benefits. There will be financial savings, economies of scale, of course, greater effectiveness, I think, in terms of learning from best practice across our 2 councils. And I think there is an opportunity for us to retain discretionary services that I think are significantly at risk, bearing in mind the financial position that the 2 councils are in. I think also we do have some staff challenges, as you'll be aware, but I think the new approach would give us an opportunity to improve and attract and retain staff in order to be able to deliver the services for our residents that we want to. I think equally and importantly, and we're already seeing the benefits of some of this, the point about a combined louder voice at both regional and national level, I think that's already, we're starting to see some of the benefits of that. In part, that's because of the work that we're already doing here in Torvine, that's absolutely true. But I think it really gives us an opportunity to think quite differently about the long-term planning across both councils in achieving our master plan, and of course, alongside those Marmot principles. So I'd refer back to that really, Councillor Thomas, in respect of some of the benefits. In terms, I'm afraid, in terms of the costs to date, I won't have the detail around that. I don't know if anybody else does. What I would say is this, it's worth bearing in mind, when we commissioned local partnerships to do the work, we anticipated that the work would take us longer, partly because of and I must thank the way that people have engaged in this process, it's been really helpful. We are delivering this several months ahead of schedule. This decision is before you today, several months ahead of schedule, in part because of the work that Natalia and the team at Local Partnerships have done, but also, of course, with thanks to those who have engaged in the process, making that much easier. And what we've seen along the journey is a real enthusiasm on both sides, for both councils, in terms of closer collaboration. And without much prompting from me, if any at all, we've already started to see some of the work, some of the staff come together, and I think that's really positive. But in terms of the cost, I'm not sure, Jason, if you can help there.
Well, it's been we've used the savings that we've benefited from financially from sharing Stephen over the last period of time to fund the work that local partnerships have been doing. So far, I think it's about £35,000 in total.
And just to answer your final question, Councillor Thomas, this is entirely a decision that's in the hands of members. It's not my decision. As I say, I do believe in all of the points set out in 1.3 in terms of the benefits. And I think that if given the opportunity to serve both councils, I think that I'm up for the challenge. However, it is entirely a decision for members today, and that will always be in the hands of members. This is ultimately, this is not a decision that it's not a decision to merge the councils. The councils retain sovereignty in respect of their own, in terms of their own democratic processes, in terms of their own budget management. Of course, members are still accountable to the public for which they serve, Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent alike. So I suppose the answer to that question is, at the point that members, if it ever gets to that point, that members may feel that the two councils no longer wish to work together. But one would hope that once you head down this path, it's not one that you would necessarily anticipate coming back from. I think that's fair to say.
Councillor Alan Slade, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got sort of grave concerns about this. This is not the first time this idea has been floated, and in fact, this council sent an expression of interest in merging with Blaenau Gwent back in 2015, which was rejected because presumably, I mean, we haven't seen the detailed response from Welsh Government. Presumably, they didn't believe that there was an economy of scale sufficient to sort of justify everything else. What bothers me as well is that I don't see this as a merger of equals. I mean, Blaenau Gwent's got a lot smaller budget than us. They carry a lot more debt than us. They don't collect their waste as frequently as we do. They're on a 3-weekly collection for non-recyclable waste. I'm sure our residents would be absolutely thrilled to be going. Their council tax, average bandy, £350 a year, higher than Torfaen. So I don't believe this is a merging of equals at all. I just think this should be a non-starter, really. I think there are far too many risks. I think the report, to be honest, the report is so short on detail, I don't see what we've got to discuss, really. Until we've got more information, I mean, we shouldn't be deciding this now. I mean, it's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there was a question there, was there, Councillor Slade?
Well, the question probably is, if this was such a bad idea that the Welsh Government refused to even go down this road in 2015, what's changed? I think I asked that question in June and it wasn't answered.
Anthony, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, okay, happy to answer that. What's changed vis-à-vis the 2015 proposals? This is a completely different proposal. That was a proposal for whole-scale merger of two councils. This is a decision about alignment and not about merger. So we'd retain our sovereignty. We'd retain the ability to choose. There would be no council tax alignment, for example. We'd retain our ability to decide to collect bins as we wish to collect bins. I'll give you an example. We currently work in a merged revenues and benefits service with Monmouthshire Council. Now, Monmouthshire Council and ourselves are free to resource that service at different levels. For example, we up the amount of money that we put into discretionary housing payments, for example. Monmouthshire jointly administer that service with us, but at a different level. So we retain the independence and the ability to make decisions as separate bodies, which wouldn't have been the case with the 2015 proposals, and that's why I believe these are stronger. As for the costs, I think the savings made of this have already outweighed the costs. If there are proposals for specific service alignment coming down the road, I would be the first one knocking down Welsh Government's door to say, if you want to make this work, help us with the one-off costs in order to help us achieve long-term savings. So I think that's a key reassurance I can give you there. Lastly, on the level of detail, I think that the 20-page report from local partnerships gives a great deal of detail on the potential opportunities, the options, the support, and the ramifications of all those things. So those are just things that I'll try to give to reassure you that this is very different to the 2015 proposals. This will retain our sovereignty, our ability to make decisions as a council ourselves, but give us, our services and our staff, the chance to build for a brighter future together.
With the greatest respect, benefits is a back office system, which is not going to have any effect at all. It's not going to affect the public at all. Bin collection is a frontline service, and that does affect us, and does affect our public. So I think we need to be very clear which services we are looking to sort of merge with, if you like. Like I say, I'm not convinced. I'll be voting against it. I voted against it in June. I'll be voting against it again today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor Rombonette.
Thank you, Chair. Stephen, in the report it says that Blaenau Gwent are learning from Torfaen and adult services, and we're learning from Blaenau Gwent on children's services. What are we actually learning from Blaenau Gwent about our children's services?
Well, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to get into too much detail around each service and the way that it's learning. But there is, by working closely together across any public sector partner, local authorities are part of one big family. But the closeness of this working means that we are able to look at referral pathways in, management of cases, the way that we are our commissioned market. There's the training that our staff are receiving, the support that our staff are seeing, and indeed some of the structures that are around within the organisation to support staff, both in terms of early intervention, in terms of the delivery of services, and in terms of step-down services. So the whole range of areas is under review across both children's and adults. There's no proposals on the table at the moment for more than learning in those two areas. But certainly that's a sort of a common a way of learning across local authorities. The fact that we are now sitting around the same executive leadership table, that our managers are, that we're having extended leadership team meetings, it really just brings us together more frequently to focus on some challenges in common. Some things we'll be managing better than Blaenau Gwent, and some things they'll be managing better than us, and we'll continue to learn from one another.
Well, I hope we can learn something from Blaenau Gwent on children's services, because, as you know, as a corporate parent and a member of this council, I would never ever trust a social worker in Torfaen in my life again until things alter, because it's absolutely abysmal. So I hope we can learn something.
Can we keep it to a question on the report?
Well, I said answering the question. I hope we can learn something from Blaenau Gwent on how bad our social services and children are, because it's appalling. So I hope we can learn something off. So I'm glad to see that in there, that we can actually learn something ourselves from another council that we are doing so badly with, because as corporate parent, I never trust them again.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Can I just take a chair's prerogative, because this isn't the first time we've ever merged jobs. We did it when I was executive member for social services, and we shared a job with Sue Evans, who also worked for the health board. So we did a 50-50 with the health and Iron Bedden Health Board, and we did a 50-50 with the council. So this isn't the first one that we've done, and it's been proved to be very successful in the past. But Councillor Mark Jones, do you have a question?
Yes, please. Agree with Councillor O'Connell. It does feel, with the data and everything that we've received so far, it does feel like the first rungs of a merger. But on the cost of change, obviously, the report said over a 3-year period we're going to gradually get together as such. Obviously, a lot of costs are going to be associated with that, with training, external special advice, etc., which we don't know what cost that is, or we haven't been given any figure. But my concern is, in just over 2 years' time, we got elections coming up, and obviously, if a new party gets in one of the councils, and then decides they don't want to work with Labour, what contingency plan have we then that this is going to work and we haven't wasted 2 years of hard work and money?
It's about political leadership. Anthony, do you want to come in? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd use the example of the Revenue Benefits Service. With Monmouthshire, a different colour of council was elected in Monmouthshire, but we continue to work together productively on that. But at that point, any new administration can make decisions itself to go whichever way it wants to. So I don't see that as a reason not to move forwards, because that's one area that does have a huge impact on the front line and does have a huge impact on people. Some of the cases that revenues and benefits take forward and some of the impact they make on people are massive. So, yeah, I think that's an example of how that's worked in the past, but that would be for a future administration to determine. As for the costs, again, I will look to help with the one-off cost of change if we decide to go down that road. But again, the savings already have outweighed the costs that are been up by this. So by sharing senior leadership teams, for example, we can save money that can then be put back into services and back into helping manage that change process.
If I could just add to that, I've had really positive conversations also with Welsh Government and the WLGA, who are both looking to support both councils through this process, and that includes the investment in a transformation team. The details of that are have still not been bottomed out, but we won't be in this alone. There are plenty of people outside of the two authorities that are interested in the work that the councils are proposing. So I am convinced that with that, it certainly, as Anthony says, the benefits by far will outweigh any cost to each of the local authorities, although a large proportion of the transformational costs will be picked up from outside of both authorities.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Nicola, Councillor Giles Davis and Councillor David Williams. Nicola, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. My first question is, if this does not get passed today by either council, what is the next step? And secondly, if this proposal goes along and starts to work and then doesn't work, what mechanism is in it to veto the actual arrangement?
I think Councillor Thomas asked a similar question on the second point, but I suppose I can extend on the first. If members decide from Torvine or indeed from Blaenau Gwent not to go forward with the proposals, then the agreement is that I will remain as the Joint Chief Exec for a further 6 months in order to help Blaenau Gwent to recruit to a Chief Exec, and then I will retain my position here in Torvine and be very proud to do so, I have to say. In respect of any future arrangements, I think I covered that off. This decision is entirely in the hands of members, there's no doubt about it, and that would be in the future. There is no doubt about it, though. There is, as is the same for taking advantage of opportunities to work together. There's a lot of work involved in that, and similarly, there will be a lot of work involved in unpicking some of that. But that's not to say that that's not all possible. So, for a future decision for councillors, it would still be there to make.
Councillor Giles Davis.
Thank you. Yeah, just wondering, perhaps I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll be corrected, but wasn't licensing shared for quite a while? But it didn't work out. We had to bring it back in-house. If this happens and we do sort of like have a backdoor merger with Blaenau Gwent and it doesn't work out after, say, a 12-month or so, how much is it going to cost us to bring it back in-house? How are we going to repair any damage that could be caused going forward? Just a couple of concerns. Thank you.
I think, again, I think it's a similar line to the questions that have been asked previously. It's an impossible question to answer, partly because we don't know how far we would be down that journey. And indeed, if there was a decision to change the leadership function across the councils, that doesn't necessarily mean that you would want to unpick some of the collaborative working that's already in place. I suppose you would just have to look at that on a case-by-case basis and judge each case on its own merit.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I think it's important to highlight that there is no proposed change to the connectivity between local members and their constituents, and we still have the role we've always had to do. Secondly, there's no change to the accountability of officers reporting to members, also really important. And we, as a council here, have the oversight of the budget for Torvine. So those decisions are not going to change, will remain with us and be our responsibility. So as such, I have a couple of slight concerns, but those concerns predominantly are around actually that we, as a council, are fully involved in the process of what comes next. I don't see, in terms of the report, and I appreciate that it's probably too early, I don't see anything in terms of a forward engagement process of things coming to us as members to go forward. I'd expect to see that. The second caveat I'd highlight is I think it's very important that that transformation process is very transparent about what those costs are and how they've been accrued. So I would say that I'm very much in favour of this approach. I think it's the sort of thing that we do need to do. We are not being asked to merge. We are being asked to work together in a collaborative way. We already have collaborative partnerships in terms of the Public Services Board and the Regional Partnership Board. We know that we have to work with others, and this is really an extension of that. If I can also briefly share the experience of having been an officer reporting to officers in other authorities, different times, Blaen y Gwent, Caerphilly, Torvine, Monmouth. The key is knowing what the reporting line is, what the accountability is, and the accountability to our residents does not change. I'm pleased to see that that is at the top of the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Hunt.
Those are two very good points, and I can certainly assure members that we can continually report back to Council and have further seminars such as the one that were held last week to run through the latest and what's happening. I think the point on accountability is an important one. If members look at the appendix at point 1.5, that gives assurance about the governance model going forwards and separate decision making for each council and cabinet within that. But those are very good points, and certainly I can assure members that we will report back on opportunities going forwards, any costs and benefits of those, and be transparent as possible about that.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Stuart Ashley is the final hand up, I think. Oh, and Councillor Williams.
Yeah,
Councillor Stuart
yeah.
Ashley.
Thank you. I remember the 2015 Leighton Andrews proposal, and this does not feel like it at all. I have that's one observation. The other observation is that when we do scrutiny, we find that some of our specialist officers and posts are not being filled. Collaboration with other councils is one, collaboration stroke partnership with other councils is one way in which we can work and fill our post, or we fill their post. Seems to be part of what this is about. We've done it with CEO. We're doing with I'm rather follow David Williams on this, and it seems that this is one way in which we can look at this. I also echo what everybody says in terms of we can disengage from this, and if it's not successful, I think I support it. But it's the business about the posts that we can't fill, the posts that we haven't got, and whether they have it or not, we can share those resources. The nature partnership's a rather wonderful example of it, to be quite frank. I've had some involvement in it. We've got a lot of other things that, as two relatively small councils, we can share. I'd like to hear what the leader and the CEO Stephen have got to say on that, because I think that, you know, hitting above our weight, and I mean sometimes we share with the Monmouthshire, as the leaders pointed out. I think it's important to reflect on that.
Thank you. Leader?
So thank you for those questions, Stuart. I think you raised an important point about the hard to fill and retain posts
Yes.
across lots of different areas of the council. That is an issue, particularly you know, in some areas where the private sector can outbid us, and we need to find a way of attracting and retaining those staff so that we can move things forward. So certainly that's one there. And 1.7, the next steps in the appendix, that's at page 58 of your agendas, talks about some of those actions that you mentioned, and you know, certainly that's something that I'll make the assurance that I'll continue to report back and have a conversation with council about as things take shape.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Williams. Lucy Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. This is an observation rather than a question in terms of the decision that this council has to make now about the report. There's been mention several times about the word merger. And I think it's just to reiterate in our decision making to say that this is not a merger, and it is not a merger through the back door. It's been clearly stated in the report that it's about retaining sovereignty, it's about collaborative working, it's about learning from each other, and it's about the best outcome for the residents of both Blaenau Gwent and for Torfaen. So I think that I think we need to bear that in mind when we make our decision, because this is going to be the best, as far as I can see, this is going to be the best outcome for both authorities now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I don't see any further hands up. Oh, Councillor Janet Jones, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Whilst we're ongoing discussions about the possible changes, are we not diverting our concern from the delivery of services, the important services to our residents, and will this then put undue pressure on our already overstretched workforce?
I think the answer is there's no doubt about this. There will be a need to change, and there'll be particularly a need to change in the first instance with regards to the roles of the executive team and the leadership team. The reason it's important for us to invest in, or to have invested in, the transformation team to support us through this work is in part to avoid that you're describing. But I would say that all of our council to a certain degree is in a state of flux. We're always looking to improve the services that we're offering. We're always looking to make adjustments, and in some circumstances those adjustments mean that we can no longer deliver those services or not nowhere near it. So we're always adapting what it is that we're trying to do, and we're always driving an improvement agenda in terms of our performance. So I don't necessarily see that impacting upon the workforce in the way that you described, because I think you can put some of those steps in. The other thing is, the reason that we've set this programme of work over 3 years is because if we were to try to make this change all in one step, I would completely agree. It would be too much for any executive team to lead on, and it would be too much for our staff. We do need to keep a temperature across both councils to understand where those pressures are. We will need to prioritise where the changes need to be made, and some of that will be around quick wins, some of it will be around immediate financial benefits, some of them will be around immediate improvements to services. So yes, I think all of that is the case, and as long as we put the right plan in with the right support team in place, I think actually the changes that we're proposing are quite manageable within the time frame that we've set.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Councillor Richard Clark.
Thanks, Presiding Member. I don't think we're taking the eye off the ball of the delivery of service. It is still front and paramount to what we do as a council. Lucy has quite clearly mentioned the word merger. This is clearly not a merger by any expression. It's certainly not backdoor. A public report in June, a public report now. How very Machiavellian of us to put this in the public domain if we're trying to do something by the back door. In terms of services, Councillor Burnett referred to children's services earlier. It's bringing additionality and a review to those services, which could quite possibly crumble if we hadn't had that advice from our colleagues in Blaenau Gwent. Similarly, we've mentioned planning and licensing today. Other areas such as highway, we have a fundamental shortage in the local government family of professional officers. They're there, but they're not in the number as they were when I started 20 odd years ago. They've either gone to private practice because of better pay, because of the old system of education. I was a benefit of it. Blaenau Gwent sent me to college to do a Masters in Town Planning. This doesn't necessarily happen. Now, with the greater alignment of services, we have a greater base to do that. God forbid we have all our planners go down with the lurgy, then we could ask Blaenau Gwent, our federated partner, for assistance in that matter. So in terms of actual delivery of frontline services, I think it will improve. Councillor Slade referred to the difference in waste, etc. That will be a decision made in this chamber if we were ever, God forbid, go down that route. We have a compact with our public that if we raise the recycling rate, that's not a route we've got to go. And so far, the public are joining us in that journey. So I think it's positive. It's not a merger. It will be better for our staff in the actual support that they get. It will be better for the public in the delivery that they get. And we, as members, are still answerable to the same electorate that we were when we were last elected.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'm going to ask Councillor Hunt-Leader now to sum up, because I don't have any other further hands up, so this is the final comments, before I ask the Chief Executive to leave the room again. Thank you.
Just firstly, just to emphasise, we have already saved money on the cost of employing a single Chief Executive, and that's money that can then be put back into the organisations, and we'll continue to do so if we move forward with that. But more fundamentally, I just wanted to sum up by saying I know change can sometimes be daunting, but the choice is clear. We either lead change or change happens to us. If services wither, demand will kill us unless we adapt. And that's very key looking at some of our services, social services in particular. Unless we adapt, then rising levels of demand will kill public services as we know them. So staying the same for me is just managed decline. It's failing our communities. So that's why we come forward with these proposals. There will be opportunity to discuss them as we move forwards. And I commend this report to Council.
Thank you, Leader. I now ask the Chief Executive to leave the room. I'll bring your attention to the recommendations that start on page 50 of the report. Jason, would you remind us of the recommendations, please?
Okay, so it is recommended to Council that either move the current arrangements of closer working onto a more permanent footing, taking forward the recommendations for closer working set out within the Local Partnerships report at Appendix 1. This option would include agreement to the appointment of Stephen Vickers as the permanent joint chief executive for both councils, subject to the recommendation being also approved by Blanigwent County Borough Council. Members should also note that this decision will result in the subsequent actions delegated to the joint chief executive as head of paid service, as described in paragraphs 4.2 to 4.7 of this report. And to note that a decision not to take forward the recommendations for closer working set out in the Local Partnerships Report as Appendix 1 would see the current arrangements remaining in place for a further 6 months, with Stephen Vickers operating as the shared chief executive for this period to support Blanigwent to recruit a new chief executive.
Thank you, Jason. That's the recommendations. Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations?
Can I have a recorded vote, please, Madam Presiding Officer?
Do I have a number of councillors agreeing with that? I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, okay. 6. Yeah, we've got. Can you raise those hands again, please, so I can check? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6, 7. Thank you. Are we okay to record the vote, please, Chris?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Starting with Councillor Ashley.
4.
Thank you. I don't think Councillor Best is in the room. No. Councillor Benera.
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Byrne.
4.
Councillor Richard Clark.
4.
Councillor Clarkson.
4.
Councillor Cowles.
4.
Councillor Cross.
4.
Councillor Daniels.
4.
Councillor Charles Davis.
Against.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Councillor Joe Gordon.
4.
Councillor Carl Gordon.
4.
Councillor Haynes.
Against.
Councillor Nick Haller.
4.
Councillor John Haller.
4.
Councillor Hunt.
4.
Councillor Gaynor James.
4.
Councillor John James.
4.
Councillor Janet Jones.
4.
Councillor Mark Jones.
Against.
Councillor Peter Jones.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Matthews.
4.
Councillor Jason O'Connell.
Against.
Councillor Mandy Owen.
4.
Councillor Parish.
4.
Councillor Price.
4.
Councillor Seaborn.
4.
Councillor Nick Simons.
4.
Councillor Slade.
Against.
Councillor Tew.
Against.
Councillor Colette Thomas.
4.
Councillor David Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Jane Watkins.
4.
Councillor David Williams.
4.
Councillor Lucy Williams.
4.
Councillor Nathan Yole.
4.
Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Yeah, that's 29 for Madam Presiding Member and 8 against. Thank you.
That vote is carried. Thank you very much. Can we call Stephen Vickers back in, please? Thank you, members. That concludes agenda item 9. We will now take agenda item 10, which is the council tax reduction scheme 25-26, which starts on page 77 of your agenda. Nigel Aurelius, Deputy Chief Executive, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Standard report. You receive it every year, members. We have to approve a council tax reduction scheme prior to the 31st of January each year. The report outlines and does that. There are no significant changes to the scheme that's been in place for a number of years. I think this will be the last time you will be asked to approve a council tax reduction scheme report, because I think Welsh Government's proposals are that there will be a national scheme going forward that they will that they will approve. But it's there before you. We have to approve it by the 31st. No significant changes to previous years. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Nigel? Councillor David Thomas.
Final showdown. Just two questions, Nigel, if that's okay. What specific failures in previous schemes have been addressed in this one? And what measurable outcomes has the Council set to ensure that this scheme delivers meaningful support, and how will they be enforced?
Sorry, what was the first question?
First one, what specific failures in previous schemes have been addressed in this new one?
Well, as I indicated, it's fundamentally exactly the same scheme as has been approved for previous years. So I wouldn't suggest there's any failures in the previous scheme or the one going forward. And in terms of measurable benefits, Wales retains a 100% council tax reduction scheme where people are able to get 100% support for their council tax should their means require that. Whereas in parts of England, when it was delegated down to local authorities, that wasn't necessarily the case. Obviously, this is supporting the most vulnerable in our society, and if that support wasn't there, I think they would simply fall behind with their council tax payments, and we would see council tax recovery suffer.
Peter, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, I'd just like to welcome and draw members' attention to section 6 of the report, which confirms that the council tax reduction scheme, which is widely advertised by the council, is currently helping 9,442 cases, providing up to 100% relief on their council tax. To just draw members' attention to the claims free phone number 0300 456 3559. And the online claim form, which we also assist residents with completing. I would just like to herald the work of the team who deal with these things in revenues and benefits. They do a huge amount of work proactively to help maximise take-up. We are being used as a best practice example across Wales with our work with the single application for council tax support, free school meals and the school's central grant, and the work they've been doing to try and maximise the take-up of that is hugely important. That will mean that people will get access to the support in Torwine that they're entitled to. So I'd like to commend the work of that team, and also to say to members that there's something we can do there to advertise that and help our people who are in need of support access the support.
Thank you, Leader. I don't see any further hands up or any questions. I'll take you to the recommendations, which start on page 80 of your report. I'll ask members whether they agree with the recommendations, please. Are there any members against the recommendations? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Agenda item 11 is motions on notice. There are no motions on notice, so we'll move on to agenda item 12, which is the member question time. Today there are 8 questions, and I'll just refer to the sheet. And the first question is from Councillor Nick Haller. Councillor Haller.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. RWE are planning an application for the Abbotsford Wind Farm that is being validated by Planning and Environment Decisions Wales, PEDU, and to proceed to the next formal stage of the planning process. Abertillery Wind Farm is a project that is approximately 36 megawatts located between Abertillery and Abersacan with Blaenau Gwent and Torfaen Borough Council areas. Bearing in mind, the respondents have until the 10th of February 2025 to make their representations to BEDO regarding this application. My question is, this project will impose on the Unsanti universal value that means cultural and natural significance, which is exceptional as a transcended national boundaries to be a common importance of preservation for future generations and of all humanity granted by UNESCO to Glenavon in 2000. As this is considered by many to be the jewel of Torfaen's crown, what is the position regarding this decision? Does TBC share the concerns about the project moving to the next stage? And will TBC commit to challenge the decision considering the preservation of our World Heritage Site, bearing in mind that the axis will cut across the World Heritage landscape and process of the wind farm will be clearly seen from most areas within the heritage site? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horler. Councillor Joanne Gordon.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Horler. So, Planning Officer John Roger worked with members to lead an aspirational project to secure World Heritage status back in 1977. This was to breathe life back into a beautiful industrial town and start a journey of regeneration to cherish and to respect the rich history of the landscape for future generation. World Heritage Site status was then awarded 25 years ago and also only one of 4 sites in Wales. The status provides international recognition of the important role Glenavon played during the Industrial Revolution, and it is right that we consider how best to protect that future status of the landscape from the impacts of proposed developments. We are seeing a number of wind farm applications in Torfaen to facilitate the Welsh Government's ambition of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Alternative green energy resources are one part of the journey. In September 2023, we held a seminar on wind energy in Torfaen, which included the process for determining developments of national significance. The Abertillery Wind Farm proposal is a development of national significance with proposed energy generation of 36 megawatts. The application is currently at the application and consultation stage and is yet to be determined by the Planning and Environment Decision Wales. Whilst we cannot determine the application, the Council, as a local planning authority, we are a consultee. Our role in the DNS process is to produce a local impact report, which will consider the impacts of the application, including the effect on the proposed development on the World Heritage Site, before being reported to Planning Committee on February the 5th and then submitted to PEDU to examine its content by the 10th of January. Other consultees with an interest in the World Heritage Site include CADU, Natural Resources Wales, and the International Council on Monuments and Sites, so ICOMOS, who also make recommendations to UNESCO. To clarify, no decisions have been taken at this stage, and whilst there is no opportunity for the Council to challenge the process of moving to the next stage, our input into the decision-making process will be through submission of the local impact report. Mentioned former planning officer John Roger earlier. Officers have recently discussed the application with John and have arranged a further site meeting. John, as a representative of ICOMOS, has been advised that ICOMOS will need to submit their comments and or objections directly to PEDU. However, the local impact report can take into account any planning matters relating to the impact on the World Heritage Site. And finally, can I reassure ward members that we will keep you up to date with the content of the local impact report and progression of the application.
Thank you. Can I just come back? I do have a concern about the planning application regarding the entrance to Neffley Hill, the impact that it will create to those residents that live in that area, and the impact that it will make to the roads within that area for people from Blaenavon and Torfaen actually moving towards Bramau. I think and a lot of people shop in that area. And when you hear quotes like 90 to 100 concrete lorries to fill one hole on a continuous basis, how much disproduction is going to happen to that area of those people that live in the area. That is a concern. And also the amount of concrete that's also going to be
Councillor
pushed
Hall,
into
this
each
is
hole.
for a
Thank you.
supplementary question, not a further comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Janet Jones.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. In view of potential service cuts within the community resilience teams, could officers update us as to any future support the groups who have benefited from interaction with the teams will receive?
Councillor Fiona Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your question, Janet. Our community wellbeing strategy was approved by Council in April 2024. It committed us to redesigning our early intervention and prevention services to make sure that they are truly preventing premature long-term support and are operating to a consistent set of outcomes and are working together to meet the needs of an individual in crisis. To achieve this and to respond to the ending or tapering of grants which funded much of this work, officers have had to review the way our services are structured. All preventative services have been engaged in a staff consultation recently on the proposed structure, the outcome of which is still being considered by officers. What I can say, however, is that one of our main aims in the strategy is to help those community groups who are preventing people's health and well-being from deteriorating, and we remain committed to strengthening, championing and supporting the great work that these groups do.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. There has been a big impact with these teams in some of our areas in north of the borough, and I would like to see that work continues. So thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Councillor Janet Jones and Councillor Cross. Councillor Nick Hall, question 3, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Whilst Councillor Jones and myself fully understand the rationale and the changes to the resource hubs that residents can pick up their recycling items from, this change of policy has been detrimental to our community that find it hard to visit the Heritage Centre due to its location and transport. Surely, if we want our communities to embrace our recycling policy and to help us achieve the 70% rate imposed by Welsh Government, we must be more flexible in the approach to aid our residents that we serve. Currently, TBC Customer Service Centre at Blenavon Resource Centre is open on a Tuesday, and whilst open, this could provide the service, like it did before, of issuing the needs of the residents' bags and boxes for those that do not want to phone, use the internet, or to ask for replacements. It's very clear that our residents just want to collect recycling items by visiting the resource centre as they did before the change of policy. And every week, the member of TBC Customer Service gets asked why we can't provide these services for the residents. Is it now time to put back this valuable service for the community to help raise the rate and our reputation?
Councillor Hunt, you're going to answer in absence of Councillor Sue Morgan.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hora, and for the spirit that I know it's asked in. I valued your input as part of our efforts to drive up recycling and improve service standards, and I know Councillor Morgan and officers have too. As we try to raise our recycling rates, you'll have seen that we have to juggle 3 factors: trying to make things as convenient as possible for residents, whilst raising recycling rates and being more sustainable, and also ensuring things are practical for our hard-working teams. In that spirit of balance, it was felt best to operate distribution of bags and boxes from the 4 hubs, so that the hubs could be more regularly and reliably stocked, giving people access to containers when they need them. Furthermore, those who are elderly or disabled and therefore unable to travel to their local hub can now have their containers delivered direct to their door, either by ordering online or by calling the contact centre. In addition, I know many members help out in their own wards for residents who need replacements. In respect of your request to review provision at Blenavon Resource Centre, we've had requests to reinstate food caddy liners at another of the hubs. Given our current drive to encourage food waste recycling, we are of course keen to ensure that food caddy liners are accessible to residents. As such, consideration will be given as to whether we can reintroduce caddy liners at a limited number of hubs, including Blenavon Resource Centre. Lastly, a big thank you to residents for their efforts to recycle over Christmas and the New Year, and to our collection teams for their hard work, especially at this often cold time of year. No service will get it right 100% of the time, and I'm probably not their favourite person for continually pushing for improvements, but the team look to avoid and correct mistakes wherever possible, and I'm assured they'll continue to work hard to deliver the best possible service to residents whilst driving up our recycling rates.
Thank you. Councillor Calder, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Anthony, for your response. It's very welcome to hear. Could I add a caveat to that? There are people currently that go to the Heritage Centre, and currently we have an exposure of between 5 and 10 bags going out of that centre every day of new red bags. Therefore, because of the situation and the new policy that we have with the red bags, could we also have those red bags within those facilities? Because at the moment there is a need for those, and I'm sure, like yesterday, I had a resident come to me saying that she didn't have a red bag and she couldn't get down to the centre to get that, but she could get to the resource centre. Could we add those red bags as a nature of course, please? Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask officers to update all members on availability of red bags so that they can transmit that then to their residents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Janet Jones, question 4, please.
Thank you. Over the past few months, in fact since July and August of last year, Torfaen officers have supported the staff, the residents and families within the Arthur Jenkins home. With Spectrum now the service provider, can you please advise as to how long this support will continue within the home and what lessons, if any, have been learned following the very distressing period?
Councillor David Daniels.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the question, Councillor Jones. I can confirm that our support for the new providers at Arthur Jenkins is ongoing, with Torfaen officers holding regular conversations with staff there. In addition, as a new provider, Care Inspectorate Wales will undertake an inspection there, usually within the first 6 months. In terms of lessons learned, a session is scheduled for the 3rd of February, after which I'll be better placed to feedback on any outcomes from that exercise. I'm very happy to meet with yourself and your Blaenavon colleagues after that meeting's taken place to go through the findings of that. Finally, I'd like to use this as an opportunity to update on Arthur Jenkins under their new provider Spectrum. As of my last briefing with officers, 3 former residents had returned to their home, alongside 2 new admissions from hospital and the community. Spectrum have agreed to take a phased approach to new admissions and are working closely with our commissioning and care management teams to support this. I also understand that several staff members have now returned to the home, which is very positive from the perspective of continuity of care for those pre-existing residents there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. I visited the home last Tuesday. There had double the number of residents there were prior Christmas. I am confirmation that quite a few of the staff are back in position, and a welcome invitation to you and the leader to meet with Spectrum on Thursday afternoon at the Arthur Jenkins home to see what really is now becoming a vibrant place and a welcoming home for residents.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. That's good news.
Yeah, I'll very happily visit and take up that offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 5 is Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. How are we attracting and supporting new businesses in Torfaen to create more opportunities for local residents?
Councillor Jo Gordon.
Okay, thank you for the first of your 2 questions, Councillor Thomas. So, our economy and skills strategy promotes a balanced approach to economic development, supporting both the competitive, innovative markets and the resilient everyday economy. Of course, attracting new businesses into Torfaen and supporting our existing businesses to thrive is a key objective within our strategy to create local job opportunities for our communities. When I meet with businesses, they tell me that their priorities are having easy access to quality business and financial support, good access to markets, the right skills and the right premises. And so our business support offer is built around those key pillars. I talked at length at the last council on Torfaen Business Direct, so I won't go into too much detail on that aspect, but it is the first stop for our new and our returning business inquiries. Alongside this, we offer a package of comprehensive advice on starting a business, business financing and navigating regulatory requirements, as well as regular training, events and newsletters for all the latest business updates. The team can provide various financial support options, including grants, loans and access to other funding streams through partnerships with the Development Bank of Wales, Cardiff Capital Region and Welsh Government. To help businesses explore new markets, we are one of the few authorities who still support a business forum. Torvine Business Voice is led by businesses and provides networking and collaboration opportunities. We offer several annual business events too, such as the Women in Business event and Torvine Business Awards, which are both designed to showcase our diverse businesses and support longer-term collaboration. The Council also actively promotes Torvine as an attractive location for business investment. Officers attend business conferences such as Welsh Technology Show, the Welsh Business Show and the Intro Biz Conference. We showcase the benefits of setting up in Torvine to any business considering relocating or expanding. Later this year, we aim to launch an investment prospectus to seek out further investment. Working with colleagues within Cardiff Capital Region and Welsh Government, the prospectus will help us to sell Torvine as a great place to do business. We are currently drafting an asset management strategy which showcases our commercial offer, ranging from office space to small retail and from industrial units to large warehouses. This is alongside Pontypool Indoor Market and the Springboard Innovation Centre, both of which offer competitive rates for businesses and free business support. We work with property agents to showcase our test trading and startup units. So, to sum up, we need to ensure that our entrepreneurs and our businesses feel supported, connected and able to thrive to offer a range of job opportunities for our local residents. We know our number of new startups is high. In fact, last year was hailed the highest in the UK. So I've given some highlights into how we work to deliver our economy skills strategy to create a sustainable and resilient economy in Torvine to meet our county plan's aspiration to make Torvine a great place to do business.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Dave Thomas, do you want to ask your next question?
I've got a supplementary to the first one, if that's okay, Madam Presiding Member. Thanks for your answer there, Councillor Gordon. Given that several businesses have left Torvine over the past 5 years, can you specify how many new businesses have been established due to council initiatives, and what has been done and what has been the net job growth or loss in the borough during this period?
Okay, sorry, thank you for your question, Councillor Thomas. I was just writing that down there. I have got some data of, haven't got data of businesses that have left in the 5 years. I know we've had some disappointments with large companies that have left because we haven't got the employment land for them to grow and expand on, which is an ongoing issue for us. In terms of new businesses, we've had an increase of 325 new businesses since 2021. I couldn't be specific and say how many of them we can attribute to the work of our business team. I just know we have new businesses. The next part of your question, I would have to refer to officers for an answer.
I'm sure you can send that through to Councillor Thomas. Councillor Thomas, question 6.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Can you provide an update on the initiatives and investments being made to support economic growth and job creation within Torvine County Borough Council, particularly in the sectors such as technology, healthcare and education?
Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. So in my answer to my previous question, I mentioned the importance of good quality sites, premises and high quality skills. As you will be aware, we have made significant investment to support these 2 areas in Torvine. Just to give a few examples, the member decision to approve Phase 1 safety works at the British site has led to private sector investment proposals to develop the space for innovative energy businesses. Our investment with the UK Government in the Pontypool Levelling Up programme is looking to bring a new cultural and food business into the town centre, not only to create jobs but also act as a catalyst to attract new businesses further into the heart of town. And we have worked with Welsh Government's Transforming Towns programme to attract millions of pounds of investment into Cwmbran and Blenavon, bringing unused buildings back into use, recognising the changing landscape for our town centres. As part of the Cardiff capital region, we are connecting our businesses into regional supply chains so they can maximise the benefits of the millions of pounds of investment in the metro and other projects. This includes our joint investment to create a regional transport hub at Pontypool and New Inn, an enabler, attracting new businesses into the borough. You asked specifically around technology and healthcare, both of which are linked. Our economy and skills strategy aims to create an innovation ecosystem to enable all businesses to create sustainable growth. This includes working with private sector partners to provide the required facilities to support these activities. Some examples include Amotio Limited, which are an innovative medical company who have just taken office and laboratory space within the Springboard Business Innovation Centre. We are also working with a private sector partner and Welsh Government to create a shared laboratory space aimed at attracting life science companies into the borough to lay the foundations for the creation of a life science cluster. Additionally, members will be aware suitable large sites for employment lands are very limited in Torfaen. Members will be required to make decisions later in the year on our appetite for growth for employment land for our replacement local development plan. If members are minded, we can identify land dedicated for high-tech research and development, including in the health and technology sectors. Where you have stated the education sector, I've taken this to mean how we nurture the workforce skills needed for local businesses to thrive. I mentioned earlier that adult skills is one of the priorities set by our economic forum, and in response, our adult community learning programme offers a workforce training programme to meet the needs of growth and demand sectors. The commercial training programme is cutting edge for an ACL team, really, and has led to over 400 individuals trained across 90 businesses, including tattooing, construction and aesthetics. Currently, a feasibility study is being carried out on behalf of the Council with regards to creating an engineering school in the north of the borough. The concept is based upon the findings of an SPF funding project run by Torfaen Strategic Economic Forum, where they've engaged with Torfaen's largest businesses to look at the barriers to growth and how they can be addressed. And finally, just to finish on some quick news that is welcomed, after a period of UK economy plateauing, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, upgraded its economic outlook for the UK and now forecasts the UK will have the fastest growing economy in Europe. The update last week stated the UK economy would grow by 1.6 this year and 1.5 next year. Thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor David Thomas, question 7, please.
I've got a supplementary.
Supplementary,
There's a supplementary to one more Madam Presiding Member, just so you know. Can you detail the exact financial investment made by the Council in each of the sectors I've mentioned over the last financial year, and provide examples of job creation or business expansion? Additionally, how does this investment compare to the average across Welsh authorities, and what metrics are used to evaluate the success or failure of these initiatives?
I wouldn't have any of that information with me right now. I'd have to ask officers to create that, and it may take some time given capacity of the team.
Can we limit the supplementary questions to actually the questions, the supplement to the answer that you've received, rather than start another question? Question 7, Councillor David Thomas, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. With the increasing focus on mental health and well-being, how is the Council supporting and promoting mental health education and resources in schools and communities across Torfaen?
Councillor Richard Clark.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, for your question. In March 2021, the Welsh Labour Government introduced a new statutory framework aimed at addressing the emotional and mental well-being needs of learners, staff and school communities. The framework on embedding a whole-school approach to emotional and mental well-being. This was reinforced by the appointment of a Deputy Minister for Mental Health and Wellbeing, who happened to be Torfaen's Lynn Neagle, who I know has carried this commitment into her new education portfolio.
Within Torfaen, officers have been working with all schools to complete a whole system approach self-evaluation toolkit. Nearly all schools have started using the audit tool. Many schools have completed their first evaluation and are in the action planning and implementation process and phases. The tool aims to give a snapshot of where schools are in the cycle of self-evaluation and action planning for embedding a whole school approach for emotional and mental well-being. It will be used to provide information to Welsh Government on progress of implementing the statutory framework and to identify common themes across schools which may indicate where additional support may be required. It also enables schools to identify priority areas for actions and to enable action planning. The Welsh network of school schemes has been updated to align with this whole school approach, so there is synergy between those two bodies. All schools in Torfaen are encouraged to complete the School Health Research Network survey. He's just bounced off the tongue the names of all these organisations. The survey provides schools with high-quality data on the health and well-being of their learners. The survey asks about various aspects of their health and well-being, including physical activity, nutrition and school life. It also includes other key topics that are associated with good health and well-being, such as sleep and school connectedness. Secondary schools completed this survey in 2023. Primary schools have just completed data collection at the end of December 24, and individual reports are provided to schools so they can develop action plans based on the context of their school. As a result of the responses, officers organise specific and relevant local authority training. We have also established a pilot network of primary feeders and secondary schools using data to work together on common themes and plan earlier intervention. There is also a new anti-bullying guidance provided to all schools using a definition that has been consulted on with children and young people, and we are developing a Torfaen-specific anti-race-censored action plan. There's a Torfaen young people's counselling service, and the Education Service oversees the contract monitoring for the external provider from Cwmbran Centre for Young People. And this offers one-to-one counselling to children and young people educated or living in Torfaen from the age of 17 to 20. There is a counsellor in each secondary school for at least 2 days a week. The primary counselling team go into primary schools when needed. There are out-of-hours services provided at Cwmbran Centre for young people, and counsellors are available to speak not only to children but parents and carers on the phone to discuss whether referral is the better way to support. They offer support to members of school staff who are working with well-being, child protection on a half-termly basis. On request, they do provide workshops for parents and school staff on topics such as self-harm. There's also the education psychology service, which works closely with schools to support individual students. There is an expression, we are not alone, and we aren't in this. There is a wellbeing network where the LA works closely with health partners, EAS, to coordinate approaches supporting schools, families and students. In the summer, the network is planning a marketplace event, and I will advise members of the date of that, where each agency will have a stand to showcase their offer of support and good practice examples. I think it's quite important to have such a comprehensive answer of what's going on out there, and I can only apologise, some of them are very long-winded names, just as hard for me as anybody else.
I appreciate that. And you've mentioned quite a few programmes here, and I kind of worry about the funding for that, for all those things you've mentioned. So since mental health, sticking to the question, funding and programmes are often face budget cuts, can you provide specifics on the budget allocated to mental health programmes? in schools and the wider community?
Today, no, because I don't have that information, but if you're happy, I will supply that to you and other members.
Thank you, gentlemen. Councillor David Thomas, question 8.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. In light of the constant feedback from residents and the impact of the 20-mile-per-hour policy on certain roads, are there considerations to potentially reverse some roads back to 30-mile-per-hour speed limit? If so, what criteria will be used to determine which roads may be eligible for this change?
Councillor Amanda Rowan.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, for your question. Every council in Wales was asked to seek residents' feedback on 20-mile-an-hour limits between April to July last year to assess the feedback against Welsh Government's revised guidance, which was entitled Setting 30-mile-per-hour Speed Limits on Restricted Roads, Guidance for Highway Authorities, and was published on the 16th of July 24. As an authority, we went a step further with this exercise. We extended the period of listening to the end of August to ensure that people had sufficient time to be able to have their say on what they felt should remain at 20 miles an hour and what should be returned to 30 miles an hour. We received 702 comments in total. There was a mix for and against exceptions from the 20 miles an hour limits. Each response was recorded and assessed against the revised Welsh Government criteria. I'm sure all members will remember the extensive consultation carried out with all members, town and community councils, along with other partners and stakeholders, such as public transport providers, prior to the Welsh Government default speed limit changing to 20 mile an hour on the 17th of September 23. Our officers also developed a highway assessment tool to expand upon Welsh Government's place criteria, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank officers for their hard work developing the tool and the approach we took. As a result of this approach, 36 roads were made exempt from Welsh Government imposed 20 mile an hour speed limits, which was far greater than the most other councils were. The most recent exercise whereby roads have been considered against the revised guidance has resulted in a further possible 8 exemptions, which are proposed to rise to 30 miles an hour, or in one case 40 miles an hour, making a total of 44 exemptions. These are part of Newport Road, Cwmbran, Estate Road, Glenavon, which also includes Gilchrist Thomas Industrial Estate, part of the A4043 north from Pontypool towards Abersycon, part of New Road between Griffithstown and New Inn, part of Riverside Pontypool, part of Turnpike Road, Llanarabon, and the 40 mile per hour section on the B4236, part of Killian Road. The revised Welsh Government guidance still references where a speed limit of 20 mile an hour should be retained in areas where there is significant demand for walking, wheeling and cycling, such as within a 100-metre walk of any educational setting, for example, nurseries, primary schools, secondaries, further education, higher education, within 100 metres walk of any community facility, the 100-metre walk of any medical facilities, for example, hospitals, GP surgeries, etc., where the number of residential and or retail premises fronting a road exceeds 20 properties per kilometre. As part of the revised Welsh Government criteria, the majority of speed limits changes are expected to be made on the main distributor roads. More minor roads in urban areas typically carrying the most local traffic and mainly servicing residential properties are expected to remain at 20 miles an hour unless there is a clear and evidence-based approach for considering change. We do recognise that not everyone will be content with the results of the reviews. Some would wish that we had a greater relaxation of speed limits, and others like slower speeds outside where they live. But proposed speed limit revisions comply with the current Welsh Government criteria, and that's something we've got to follow.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor David Thomas, is there a supplementary?
Yes, thanks, Madam Presiding Member. Quite a bit of it of the supplementary you have answered, but I just wanted to know if there was any data to suggest that the 20 mile per hour policy has either positively or negatively affected road safety, traffic flow, or local businesses in Torfaen.
I haven't got that data to hand, but I can get it. I'm sure there's lots of data out there about traffic collisions and further things, so I'll get that over to you.
Thank you for those questions, members. That takes us to the date and time of the next meeting. For your information, members, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 4th of March 2025 at 10 a.m. Thank you, members. That concludes the meeting.